Shalom, Kahal Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Kakodash. Double honors to the elder apostles of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us its truth. The Shalom and salutations to all the brothers are pushing the word of truth and in sincerity. The hopeful elect tabernacle of David. On the brother Yahshua, I'm back with the WW3 Daily update. Okay, and WW3 will involve, okay, the chariots of Israel. Okay. These are the chariots of Israel. Okay. This is 2 Kings 2 and 6. 2 Kings 6 and Salakia. 8. Okay. We're going to read this little passage here. Elisha captures blinded Syrians. All right, we're dealing with Syria here. Syria's in the news right now. Okay. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, beware that you pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Okay. Therefore, the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. Now remember that your heart is your mind. Okay. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of these, which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet, that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, go and spy where he is at, that I may send and fetch him. So the king of Syria sent his men to go grab up Elisha, because he had these powers, right? He had a double portion of his teacher Elijah, the prophet. And it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, a great army. And they came by night and compassed the city about. So the king of Syria sent his army to Dothan to grab up Elisha. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early, he had gone forth, and behold, a host, an army, compassed the city, both with horses and with chariots. And his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we do? So Elisha's side men said, what the hell? All right, how are we going to get out of this? And Elisha answered. And he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. Okay, because Elisha knew about the chariots. He knew about the angels, right? And how they outnumbered the army of the Syrians. Okay, now listen close to this. And Elisha prayed. He prayed and said, O Lord, and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Okay? So the army of the Lord was there, the chariots, the angels. And when he came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. Elisha prayed to the Most High. And Elisha said unto them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the men whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria. So he got them out of the situation. And my premise for reading this is that the chariots of Israel, okay, are in the war. What does this say? The king of Syria warred against Israel. Do you think that there are Israelites over in the Ukraine? That the Most High, some of them might be of the elect. So is there not a contingent that they can pray to? All right, now we're going to watch this. First, we're going to watch this, whatever, GB. This goes back a month or so.
All clear. Whoa.
It's lucky. So this is GB News.
At the start.
Okay, GB News, March 7th of this year. UFO lightning attack on Russian tanks. And then this other thing, King Tut's dagger from, we won't go into that, but it's a quick excerpt on how the chariots are involved in the war. Okay, and you have to be spiritual and have eyes to see and ears to hear that this is going on, right? Because at the close of World War III, the chariots will definitely be involved, and everybody, all eyes are going to see. All right? All right, so let's watch this.
Right, the star again, Leo, and UFO attacks on Russian tanks, if only.
Yeah, so this is the Daily Star, trying to bring a light-hearted spin to what's an awful crisis. But basically say a group of Russian tanks were supposedly wiped out by a mystery UFO attack after the families of trapped Ukrainian soldiers prayed to God to offer their troops some help. So, yeah, it is bizarre. And yeah, the people, CBN News Ukraine director Konstantin Litvinenko made the claim speaking on the channel's Global Lane program. But it could have just been an attack from a drone or...
Yeah.
This is what I mean.
Leo.
You see how the Edomite, he got to explain it away because he don't understand. Okay? He don't get it.
Not only owning the Korean pronunciations this evening, but owning the Ukrainian ones.
Nothing he can't do. This is what I mean about propaganda, you see. I mean, although in this case, God is real and UFOs are real, as the Pentagon has confirmed.
You hear that? So the narrative has changed. You have to consider, after all of these hearings and congressional meetings, and they have to come forward and they have to qualify the things that are going on because you can't hide it anymore. Everybody's got a cell phone, a video camera, and I need some answers, is what the Issacharite said when he was blowing up. Look at this. I need some answers, right? Well, we got it.
Oh, in this case, God is real and UFOs are real, as the Pentagon has confirmed. So maybe, they did recently confirm, didn't they? So maybe it did happen. The only thing is, he's talking about it looked like a lightning sort of thing. It's far more likely it was a secret weapon sent in by the US or Elon Musk or someone.
Or just lightning.
Just lightning, yeah. Yeah.
Right, now we move on to...
No, we don't. Lightning, huh? Sounds like sparks and tempests to me. Let's get this real quick. Let's go to Sirach. Knows Wisdom 5. Because it's strange. Oh, it's bizarre, is the word that he used. Wisdom of Solomon 5:1. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed, bizarre, at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for. Okay? That's talking about them chariots. The strangeness of our salvation. All right? The chariots are going to do an extraction. They're going to extract the POWs out of every land, out of Babylon the Great, out of Ukraine, if you will. All right? Let's watch this next one. Now, this is the 700 Club, so these are some religious fanatics that don't know a damn thing about the Bible.
If you manage this well, it will be best.
But they will be speaking about the chariots and trying to give it some biblical context. So,
Oh,
so I'll start at the top here. This guy's deadly serious and thinks he knows something. So this is a 700 Club channel. March 8th is the Most High miraculously helping Ukraine. Reporter shares amazing stories. So let's watch that.
I'm joined today by Gary Lane. He's senior international correspondent at CBN News. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great, Billy. Glad to be with you.
Well, I wanted to talk with you because a number of reports out there about God intervening in amazing ways in the midst of this Ukrainian-Russian conflict, this brutal invasion by Russia into Ukraine. We're obviously seeing lots of headlines about that battle, but amid those headlines, there have been these amazing stories, these claims of God intervening. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I've got to tell you, Billy, I haven't been able to verify this, but I think it's amazing. There are a lot of Christians in Ukraine talking about this. But last week I talked to our CBN Ukraine director, and I said, look, tell me, are there any miracles going on? He said, yes, as a matter of fact, there are. There was a member of our church whose son went to the front lines, and he and his battle group were facing the Russians, and he called his dad on a cell phone. They still have cell phone service. And he said, Dad, you've got to get people in the church praying because I don't know if we're going to make it through this. We are fighting overwhelming odds here. The Russians are just so large, and they have all this mechanical equipment, tanks, and armored personnel carriers, and anti-aircraft stuff, you name it, artillery. And he said, I don't know if we're going to make it. So the father got off the phone. He called members of his church, and they started a prayer chain, and they started praying nonstop for their men in the field and for this man's son. And the son called back later in the evening. He said, Dad, you wouldn't believe it. It was like a UFO or something. We've never seen anything like it. Just a brilliant flash of lightning in the sky, just taking over the whole sky. We haven't seen that. We thought maybe the Americans or somebody had a weapon they were using, but we haven't seen this. And then the next morning they woke up and they said all the equipment from the Russians was destroyed.
Wow.
I mean, that's an amazing miracle, Billy. And I've got to say, it kind of reminded me a bit of the Bible. I think it's in Judges 7, Gideon and Gideon's army. Remember, the Lord had him whittle down the army to about 300 men. They were facing 135,000 Midianites. And Gideon said, how are we ever going to beat, these guys? Kind of like the Ukrainians with the Russians.
Yeah.
And God intervened. They went to the camp of the enemy, of the Midianites, and the Midianites became confused and started fighting one another. And that leads me to this other story that he talked about, and that was there was a battalion of tanks coming through a Ukrainian village, and they took over the village, and afterwards they saw Ukrainian flags at City Hall and around the village, and they took these flags and they planted them on their tanks. The spoils of war, we defeated the Ukrainians. This is a souvenir we can take home. And later that evening, they were on the way to meet up with another battle tank group. And when they did, that group thought they were Ukrainians, so they opened fire on them. So very much like Gideon's army, fighting one another.
Well, and I know.
Confusing them.
Well, I was going to say in that story, I know there were some prayers going out, for the Russians to sort of fight one another, to turn on one another in some way. So it was interesting to hear that story. And as believers, right, as we look at all of this, whether we can verify the different reports or not, as Christians, taking a step back, when we read Scripture and we see what is possible with God, when we look at a situation going on in real time, we should believe that any of these things are possible, right?
Well, we should, and I think it's encouraging to Christians, even if it's been embellished a little bit. It encourages us in our faith. But I've got to say, Billy, as a believer, I also feel bad for the Russians. I mean, I can't imagine Russians turning their tanks on one another and just slaughtering one another. I mean, it's bad enough fighting an enemy, but to do that to one another. And I feel for the family member. I've been to Russia a number of times.
All right, enough. Point is that the chariots of Israel, they're describing them, right? And I don't altogether, know for sure what went on, but what I'm hearing, they said lightning, right? And we'll close on this. Let's get the lightning, okay? Where's my pocketbook at? Wow. Oh, here's wisdom right here. Okay, so let's get second S. Let's go to 13. All right, because the chariots, right? Second Ezra 13:3. And I beheld, and lo, that man who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, whose name is Yahusha, waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. Who are the thousands of heaven? See if I can find it. Who are the thousands of heaven? Psalm 68:17. The chariots of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai are 20,000, even thousands, the thousands of heaven, even thousands of angels. Wait a minute. This is God's army, his heavenly host. The chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of what? Angels. The angels are in those chariots. The Lord is among them as in Sinai, in the holy place. Okay, remember Pharaoh got his ass whooped? Well, how did he get his ass whooped? Was that not a war? Didn't Pharaoh go to war with the Most High like a dumbass? Okay, is not Yahushua the head angel? He's among them as in Sinai. Now we go back here, saying the same thing. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong. He's among them as in Sinai. With the thousands of angels, the thousands of heaven. God's army. And when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. Okay, so they were flying. All right, now here's the sparks and tempest. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth a fire. Now these guys spoke of the Russian tanks getting shot down by lightning, so to speak. Well, lightning is concentrated fire. Okay? And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the men that came out of the sea. So these guys are, this is World War III taking place, and then suddenly they had to switch the battle plan from fighting each other to fighting against the men that came out of the sea and the angels. But I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. This is talking about the war chariot of Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay? And it's going to, what this is doing is explaining the weapon systems on these chariots. Okay, here's the chariot. But I would have seen the region or the place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. He's describing the size of how big the chariot was, calling it a mountain. He looked around to see where they carved that mountain out of the hillside, but it wasn't a mountain, it was a chariot. He was flying up in it. Okay? Now I'm going to jump down here. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand nor held sword nor any instrument of war. He's about to describe the weapon system. But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been a blast of fire, lightning, and out of his lips a flaming breath, lightning, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempest, lightning. And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one. Sounds like what happened to them tanks. So that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Okay, so this is is this what is going on out there in the Ukraine? Could be. But it's definitely going to go on at the end of World War III, when all the nation's armies are going to be destroyed. All right? So I just wanted to get into that and show that, whatever's going on out there is all going to culminate in mutually assured destruction when the nukes land on Babylon the Great, which will be fallen as fallen. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and close. We hope that the elect were edified, you brothers and few sisters. With that, we'll say shalom.